First of all, who do you support?
Liverpool.
Okay, that's acceptable.
Who do you support?
Bournemouth.
Good to
That's where I was born. So there you go. Can't complain at that.
Like the look of Antoine Semenyo.
Mate, I think you like the look of Antoine Semenyo a little bit too much. Let's see what happens in January.
All right. So, what do you think of player power?
Player power is crucial in modern football. And over the course of the summer, we've really seen the influence and control and power that players have with regards to their future destination, particularly with social media. And they now have a really powerful tool, because if you're a footballer with 5 million followers or 10 million followers, you can literally tell a huge chunk of people exactly how you're feeling with the click of a button. And we've seen it, particularly with someone like Alexander Isak, who's not been particularly happy where he is at Newcastle for whatever reason. And he's done everything in the book to try and engineer that move, that dream move to Liverpool. And ultimately, on deadline day, he sealed that £125 million move. So what that shows to you in the public domain is that players do have power, they do have control, they do have the ability to get what they want. But it doesn't always work in that manner. And there are other players that try to engineer moves as well, and they didn't get their wish. So as a player, you have to be careful about using certain tools at your disposal to try and get yourself that dream move, because it can backfire. And sometimes if you don't get the move and you've got to go back and play and be in that dressing room with those players that know you wanted out, those fans that know you wanted out, then that can really damage a connection. And as we know, football fans are the heartbeat of every single club. And if they're unhappy, the club's unhappy. And you need to make sure you nurture and protect that relationship at all costs. So I would say that, yes, to answer your question, players do have power and they do have the ability to get things moving. But they should only use that in the most extreme of circumstances, because it could really backfire. And ultimately, you sign a contract with a club. If that's a 5-year contract for £100,000 a week, you have signed that contract. No one else has made you do it. You've agreed that contract. And if you've got in your head, I only want to be there for 3 years, you need to have the foresight to put the right clause in that contract that says, after 3 years, I can go to this club or these types of clubs for this price. And I think we'll see more release clause coming into football through agents and through players, because they want to have a greater control over their whole career and the picture of what they do. And if you sign a 6-year contract, that might suit you at the time. But if you've got the plan that you want to move on, then you need to have that ability. So yeah, really interesting topic, really interesting debate. We were talking about it a lot on Sky Sports News over the course of the summer. And I'm sure moving forward, it will be something that we continue to talk about as well, because it's going to be such a huge topic.
I think you've kind of answered this, but due to the large success of players pushing moves, you think we'll see more of it in future transfer windows?
I think we will see more of it. I think we will see more players trying to get their way. They will look at some examples and say, right, that player agitated for a move and he got the move. But also there'll be other players that didn't really agitate for the move. And I think really you have to just look at yourself. You look at yourself in the mirror and say, right, what type of an image do I want the footballing world to see of me? How do I want people to perceive me? How do I want people to think about me? Are you someone like Mark Mcadam, for example, who's had huge amounts of publicity, linked with Newcastle, linked with Liverpool, linked with other clubs, and all he has done has been the consummate professional? He got down, he's played his best football for Palace, he's delivered victories, delivered silverware, he's led like a captain, and the fans still love and respect him. And I think that's the key thing. It's about a personal thing. What do you want people to look at you and think? Do you want people to think that you're an honourable guy, you signed a contract, you're respecting the people that pay your wages? Or do you think, actually, this is an opportunity I can't turn down, I might not get this chance to play for this particular club ever again, so now I've got to use my power and engineer that move? So yeah, it's interesting, but I think it will be down to agents, it will be down to individuals, and different people will look at things with a different lens, and that's where they'll make probably slightly different decisions depending on the type of character they are.
Obviously we've seen Johan Wissa and Isaac take to Instagram with statements. Wissa obviously deleting his profile picture and delete his Brentford posts. How do you think an ongoing saga that is took to social media kind of impacts the club and player situation?
Well, in those particular examples that you've mentioned, Shane, you've got two really high-profile players, key players at their respective clubs. Alexander Isak, obviously at Newcastle, key man, scoring huge goals, a big part of their success. Scored in the cup final, and he's obviously putting out stuff there on social media. The same with Johan Wissa, and again, you look at it from both sides. Alexander Isak was looking at the situation, thinking, "I've got a Premier League club, Premier League champions that are willing to make me the Premier League record and give me huge amounts of money to play for that great club, that great institution that is Liverpool." But he's also leaving an incredible club, which is one of the institutions of English football in Newcastle. Yes, they haven't been winning titles and they're not been at the sharp end of the Premier League for a number of years, but historically that is a club that has had the ability to compete, mostly driven on by the passionate fan base. They've, Newcastle fans have turned Newcastle into a much bigger machine than they are because of the way they support their team and the environment at St James's Park. So you've got two players there that have used their power and used their social media to put out statements, which has had an impact on the way people view them, and it's had an impact on their respective clubs, their respective teammates, the environment, the noises that have been created. So it's almost, I'd say, like a nuclear button. When you start to put stuff out there in a public domain about how you're feeling, that could have a huge impact on your employers, the people that pay your wages. It's a big decision and it's a big moment for those players. And ultimately, Alexander Isak and Johan Wissa will say, if I didn't act the way I did, I possibly wouldn't have got my dream move. And for me, I had to do what was right for me. And the one thing I do understand, having worked in football for over 25 years, careers are short, opportunities change, and Alexander Isak or Johan Wissa could have stayed at both Brentford and Newcastle and then got injured, could have had a loss of form. Those Newcastle and Liverpool could have gone off and got other players, and that opportunity never comes again. And you might look back in 10 years' time and think, if only I had said more,
Yeah.
if only I had done more, because then I might have got that dream move that never materialized again. And a career is short. You have a short spell to earn money. Yes, at this level, when you're on 250, 300,000 pound a week, you're never going to have to worry about money again. And going from 150 to 300,000 pound a week is, you're a multi-millionaire and you're still a multi-millionaire. So, there is that argument, but I think it's definitely an interesting talking point.
How has the behavior of Mark Gahey influenced your personal views on him?
Mark Gay is the most perfect professional, and the way he has handled himself has been like the most perfect professional. He's a really popular guy at Crystal Palace, hugely valued by his teammates, by the coaches, by Oliver Glasner, the ownership. Everyone really respects and likes him. And it's not very often you see players almost celebrated when they leave a club. And I think that's what you'll have with Mark Gay. Of course, we have this window called the January transfer window that could change the way he's viewed, and the dynamic could of course shift if Palace decide to try and cash in their last opportunity to make some money. If he decides that the club coming in is the right opportunity for him, he may just decide, look, I need to wait and see what options I've got in the summer, because there'll be greater options in the summer than someone having to deal with Crystal Palace. But again, I think in this situation, Mark Gay has been absolutely perfect in every movement and moment during what has been clearly a really difficult time when you've got massive clubs that want to try and sign you. So yeah, I think if you were to find the most perfect professional when it comes to transfer activity surrounding your name, Mark Gay is exactly what you'd want.
And on Mark Gahey again, how attractive is that kind of behavior to whatever club he's going to join? Because that is great qualities to have.
So sorry, so again, what Was that first bit of the question?
So how attractive is that behavior for a future club he's going to join?
Really attractive. I think you look at the way Mark Gay's handled himself, and you'd say he is absolutely the type of player we want in our squad. So many managers across the Premier League and the EFL, they look at the character of a player. They do a lot of detail, they do a lot of research, they have a lot of data, and it's all about ultimately the data will tell them if they do all the right things on the pitch. But for me and for so many sporting directors I speak to, the key part of any recruitment is the profile of the character and the personality. Who's he spend his time with? How hard does he train? Is he in a relationship? Does he have family? What are his morals? What are his values? Where does he spend his money? And when you're spending 20, 30, 50, 150 million pound on a player, that's a huge investment in a human being. And as you know, human beings make mistakes. Human beings don't always perform at their optimum. So you have to try and ensure that everything that happens off the field is going to have the best possible impact on the field, because that's why you're investing such a huge sum of money. And I think people will look at Mark Gay and they'll look at the way he's handled himself and they'll say, that is the perfect player for my dressing room. And the great thing about Mark Gay, and this is something that's really rare as well, how many times can you buy the captain of a Premier League side, right? There are 20 Premier League captains right now, right? How many times do you get the opportunity to purchase that kind of a profile of player with those leadership qualities, in and out of the dressing room, the way he will lead the team, the way he'll communicate with the rest of the club, be an ambassador for the club, and in theory, be the best performer for the club week in, week out, lead by example in all of his actions on and off the pitch. And I think that's the other key thing about Mark Gay, why so many clubs would be interested in him in the summer if he is a free, because A, the way he handles himself, and B, the type of person he is, because he's a top professional.
All right. And last question, bit off topic, but who do you think's going to win the league this season?
Well, I said at the start of the season, Liverpool, like most people, thought that they'd run away with the league because of the investment they made. Really good, shrewd business on paper. Obviously, at this early stage in the season, it's turned out that that investment and those players are perhaps going to take a little bit longer to gel than initially anticipated. But I still think they've got an incredible squad. Oh, sorry, mate. Someone was trying to call me, and he plays in League Two. And I think, sorry, ask that question again and I'll give you the answer. Sorry.
About who's going to win the league?
So I think at the start of the season, I said that Liverpool would win the league. Like probably 95% of the community, the footballing world, would look at Liverpool and look at the business they've done. But clearly what they've done has been really good on paper. But obviously football's not played on paper, it's played on a pitch, and they've not been able to transition all those incredible players into that team at the moment. And they have to find a way to get the very best out of everyone and make sure everyone's happy. But when you get to that level and you're fighting on 4 fronts or 3 fronts as they now are, because they're not in the League Cup, it's hard, because you have to compete and perform at every moment. And if you're on the bench 1 minute, but starting the next minute, you've got to be at your very best. This is a club that wants to go and win the Champions League and win the Premier League. So yeah, you look at Liverpool and say that's not going to happen now. It looks at the moment like it's a straight fight between Man City and Arsenal. Arsenal have the quality, the strength in depth, the squad, the players, the striker, the manager, everything on paper is perfectly set up for Arsenal to go and win the Premier League. The problem you've got is that Arsenal haven't won the Premier League for over 20 years. And you've not got many players within that group that know how to get over the line to win a Premier League. Man City do. Man City do have a manager that has won the Premier League. And yes, Mikel Arteta won it as an assistant whilst at Man City, but he's never been the manager. And there are players at Man City that know how to go and deliver the biggest pieces of silverware that are available. So I think it'll be really fascinating. I think it'll be gripping. I think there will be twists and turns. I still don't think you can write anyone off at this stage, whilst it looks tough for Liverpool and Man United. They, over the course of the next sort of 6 weeks, you'll start to get an idea of who's up there. Chelsea look good one moment, not so good the next. Again, really good quality squad. Not enough players that have won the Premier League that can get them over the line, and they're obviously very young. But I think that there are still teams that will surprise. And you just look at teams like Brentford, Bournemouth, Sunderland. They are surprising some of the biggest sides in the Premier League because they've got something different. They've got a magic sauce at the moment. They're on a vibe. They're on a journey. There's a togetherness. They're playing great football, and that's why the Premier League is so loved around the world, because it is so competitive from top to bottom. And yes, there are teams that are weaker, but the gap between those sides that are struggling and the gap that for the teams that are trying to win the title is not as huge as perhaps it once was, and that's why we're gripped to every match day in the Premier League, because you just don't know what's going to happen. And I think that's exciting. And I think this could be one of the seasons of the ages where you look back in years to come and say, what an incredible campaign, where it twists and turns from one week to the next, and you're never quite sure what's going to happen. And that's why we love it so much.
All right. Thank you very much, Mark. I